Penn State's coaches were paid top 10 in college football. Got beat by two coaches on his staff that were ranked in the bottom 100 of highest paid out of 136 schools. Let that sink in a little bit. Drew Allar was failed by Penn State in more ways than one. I got some strong feelings about this, man. Not the fact that, I am a Drew Allar guy. I have been for the last couple of years when everybody wanted to kind of turn the tide on him and say, oh, he's a good quarterback. And now it's, oh, I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. And now it's, oh, he should have declared for the draft last year. Well, it is what it is, man. And a lot of those people, this is a community of flip-floppers, first of all. Let's just put it out there. But if you guys didn't know, this past weekend's game against Northwestern, he goes out there and he hurts his ankle. James Franklin then comes out and confirms that he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Now, this is news that a lot of us did not want to hear for more ways than one. But what I can tell you is that this adds on to the failure of Penn State. We're going to get into James Franklin here in a little bit. But it goes back to a thing that I've been saying for a very, very long time, is that 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 system is not conducive for a quarterback like Drew Allar. The guy that should have been in this offense the whole time is a guy named 𝙁𝙤𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝘀𝗀 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 down there with Missouri. This is the type of offense that dude should have been in. And maybe Drew Allar should have took his talents to another team at this point in time. It's just sad to see kind of the downfall of that kid. And a lot of people are pointing a finger at him when I think he's going to be an excellent pro in the NFL, because a lot of these guys are not going to be running the schemes that 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 was. Like, look, if you guys don't know the history of 𝗕𝘂𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, being an offensive coordinator at Kansas, having Devin Neal and obviously Jalen Daniels and some of Jason Bean, we talked about this a little bit last week. But the one thing that I've been saying is, obviously, this offense is run first. They don't care about passing the football. And we'll get into why that's important here in a little bit. But look at the numbers, man. 56% of 𝗕𝘂𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀's offense is run first, right? That's just in general. But these last 3 games have been at a higher percentage that he's done, except for the UCLA game. Again, against Northwestern, they ran the ball 60 times. Against UCLA, they ran the ball 54 times. 60% of the time. 54% of the time against UCLA. 58% of the time against Oregon. That's averaging 57% in the last 3 games, which is 1 percentage point higher than what his actual average is. Why would you have a pro-style quarterback running in a run-heavy offense? Especially in college. In the NFL, you might be able to get away with it. But in college, I don't think this is going to work out the way that we wanted it to. It's easy to sit behind and put the blame on Drew. When if you watch the game before last game, how can you say that this is Drew's fault? But he had the mentality of let's just run. Let me run. He had the most rushes. Now, Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton are on the same team as this guy. He had the most rushes against UCLA. He had the second leading rushes against Northwestern and Oregon. Where is Nick Singleton? A couple years ago, we were talking about this dude might be the best running back in college football in a couple years. Well, those couple years are up, and Kaytron Allen has taken the mantle as the number 1. Pass blocking has obviously been a problem this year. Maybe because they're so used to run blocking at this point in time. Pass blocking, run blocking. 2 totally different styles of blocking. And like we alluded to before, 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 is one of the best Russian offensive coaches ever since he was at Kansas. But we haven't seen, I don't even think we've seen what the peak of what a Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton could be under again with a competent coach. This guy is supposed to be awesome. This goes back to the problem. James Franklin was fired this past weekend, right? Rightfully so. I want to, if you go back last week, I put out a video on why he should go, and bam. I guess somebody at Penn State saw that, damn, he actually has some pretty good reasons on why this guy should be fired. But James Franklin hired this guy at the end of the day. You have a 5-star pro-style quarterback, and you hire a guy that has a high percentage in running. But the defense has been good these last couple of years. A top 5 defense almost every damn year. Manny Diaz, Tom Allen, Jim Knowles. These guys' names ring a bell because they're awesome defensive coordinators. That was James Franklin's last 3 hires on defense. To sit here and think that I don't think some of this James Franklin talk of him getting fired does have anything to do with Drew's injury. I think it has a lot to do with Drew's injury, actually. I think a lot of guys at Penn State looked at this like, my goodness, how can we get to this point in time where our team, and I was a guy that has not been high on Florida State. I'm sorry, not Florida State, Penn State. I haven't been. Hasn't been high on my team either, but I haven't been high on Penn State. But when I saw Drew play football, I'm like, man, the kid has got all the tools. It just, the first year that we saw him play, him and Keandre Lambert-Smith just didn't have the chemistry. Second year rolls around, you're like, damn, who is he throwing to? Tyler Warren. This year, let's go get Trevor Pinion, Devontae Ross from Troy. Let's go get, Kyron Hudson from USC and see how he does. These guys aren't performing. But you have 2 bona fide running backs and a whole offensive line that came back, and Jim Knowles as your defensive coordinator. I think Drew's injury had a lot to do with this fire in this past weekend, ladies and gentlemen. UCLA had 2 coaches that came in with not that much notice and not that much time to get prepared, and they dominated Penn State. Dominated. Against a roster of coaches that were getting paid $12.7 million a year collectively. Penn State's coaches were paid top 10 in college football. Got beat by 2 coaches on his staff that were ranked in the bottom 100 of highest paid out of 136 schools. Let that sink in a little bit. James Franklin, as a former offensive coordinator, never recruited wide receivers all that well since his tenure. You can name a handful that have gone off and had decent careers or were decent at Penn State. But just think about that he had to go to the portal to get 3 bona fide guys that he just has not used outside of Devontae Ross. You would think they would have a more dominant offensive game plan with a 5-star quarterback and 2 of the best running backs in the country. James deserved to be fired for his mismanagement of this team through the years, man. Just is what it is. I'll leave you with this about this subject, man. It's really hard pressed to say that since his tenureship, especially in the last 5 years, that talent hasn't got the wins and not strategy, except for on that defense. Talent got them wins and not strategy. There were 2 losses to this team that happened this past weekend, and one was justified and the other one wasn't. We should have never lost Drew to injury. But we damn sure should have lost James Franklin to the fire. It's just unfortunate that we had a 2-for-1 situation.